And we welcome you to another edition of the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less Coaches Show with the head coach Doug Wojcik, brought to you by GEICO, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car insurance. Call GEICO at 1-800-947-AUTO. That's 1-800-947-AUTO, or visit geico.com. And we welcome you inside the Hall of Fame room this week, where a lot of former players have graced the College of Charleston alongside the head coach Doug Wojcik. I'm Jeff McCarriger. Thanks for tuning in this week here on CFCSports.com. Coach, let's get right to it. Congratulations. Big win last night. The Road Warriors do it again, now 6-0 on the road.
Yeah, really proud of that. It says a lot about the team and obviously kind of to turn it around since the Sanford game. Play 3 games in 5 days. Got off to a great start last night. Give Citadel a lot of credit. They played a great game, probably their best game of the year, but in the end we found a way to win.
How are you guys doing this on the road? 6-0 on the road. I mean, it's one thing to have 6 road wins. I think you guys are tied for first in the country. But to be undefeated on the road, I mean, the guys must have great concentration on the road this year.
I think we do. I think there's less distractions. We try to eliminate the distractions. I think winning at Baylor early just gave us that confidence, and now that never want to have an arrogance about it, but I think there is a certain swagger that we're okay on the road, and there's no panic on the road, and we've played in a lot of different hostile environments.
A lot of stats to pour through from last night's game. Great win. You really, the Citadel shot well. I think they shot almost 54% last night, but you guys held them to a minimum, I think, about 53 shots. The defense tried to at least contain the number of shots they got.
Yeah, they averaged 18 3-point shots a game going into the game, and we held them to 14. Yeah. Similar to Furman, we thought our post defense would be good enough to, keep them under control. Now, they scored a lot in the paint last night. And then we got driven in the first half. We gave up 3 or 4 layups. But in the end, we defended the 3-point line well and did a good enough job in the post. Hopefully we'll do a better job the next time we play them, and maybe there'll be some different tactics defensively against Grossell. He played a great game last night.
Coach, you talked about how this season you guys have been able to win, maybe without the best games from Baru or without Lawrence or without Stitt. Last night, the 3-headed monster of all 3 of those guys combined for over 50 points. They played really well. They played really well,
and again, I would probably venture you would agree with me, our most complete game in some sense. I know the Chat game, but hostile environment, things aren't going well. You got up against Chat. The good thing about Chattanooga was you never gave in. You never had a low point. So that was progress with our team. In this case, good start, tight game, rival game, team playing above their level for the most part, and yet we still came up big in a lot of different areas, and those 3 guys really came up big.
You talk about it being a rivalry game. You and I were just talking about this before we came on. Although it is a rivalry game, the College of Charleston's played well. That's now 5 straight wins against the Citadel, I think 8 of the last 11. What was your thoughts, being a former military academy guy, what was your thoughts on the atmosphere last night?
A lot of respect for it. Talked a lot to I asked the freshmen because I wasn't aware. I said, what are you guys called as freshmen? They're called knobs. I says, well, I was a plebe at the Naval Academy, and I showed a couple of them before the game in the stands when I was standing there, my class ring. So I totally relate to those kids. See their kids, their heads shaved, and just the whole, plebe year and how hard it is, the freshman year, knob year, whatever. But a lot of respect for Chuck, and certainly glad to see his team playing so well. They unfortunately lose 3 straight games at home. All nail biters for them, and I do think that he's doing a good job with his team.
You mentioned Chuck Drizel, obviously a friend of yours. You and I talked about on the radio show yesterday. Your friendship goes back, I think, over 30 years. And Coach Kress mentioned it during the TV broadcast. He said, Jeff, it's always tough to coach against one of your best friends. How was that last night?
I never looked down there. I don't know if he looked down at me or not, but we got that first bucket of the game, which was nice to get that. I was excited, but then he came out of that one timeout and got us on a backdoor play. So I said after the game to him, I said, you got us on that back door. But I think we're both handling it well, and our wives were with each other after the game. I didn't really look at it, him versus me, and me versus him. I just thought it was our 2 teams, and, we'll move on and, have to turn around and play each other next Thursday. So it's kind of odd. I'll look more forward to the fact that it'll be just a single game, which I think will create even more of a rivalry in the future once we go to the CAA.
One more stat I wanted to bring up. I'm sure you've had a chance, knowing you, that you've had a chance to watch back the tape already, but 16 offensive rebounds last night for you guys. I thought that was a big key in the victory.
Yeah, real big key. And again, finding different ways to win games, playing different styles to win games. I thought they ran their offense really, really well, did a good job, but the rebounding was terrific. I thought Trent, you could see he played more minutes last night. Got a little more winded last night than, say, on Saturday. Again, Saturday wasn't nearly as taxing, wasn't nearly as hot. Yeah. It's a warm night. Weather's real warm here. I think that's great that we can continue to win and him get more minutes. I thought early Willis's 2 fouls hurt us a little bit because I usually go with 2 fouls. I usually sit the kid the rest of the half if I can hang in there. I did put him in towards the end of the first half. But all good, progress in the right direction. And just real pleased that we have the rebounding the way we have it right now.
One more thing on the numbers, I know something you've been keeping track of is assists and steals. And I've noticed now in the last, I think, 2 or 3 games, those numbers continue to rise.
Yeah, I'm not as concerned about the steals, just the way we play defense. I think we'll always be low. We don't give up easy baskets because we don't gamble as much. I think sometimes you may get 2 or 3 steals a game, but you might give up 4 or 5 layups that way. Right. But the stats that I would be most pleased with would be certainly the assist to turnover, more the turnover, where we didn't, you didn't have a lot of them. The assists, sometimes we ball screen a lot for Anthony Stitt and Andrew Lawrence, so sometimes they're going to come off those ball screens and never pass the ball and get a bucket, so there's not an assist to get. Yeah. The other key one to me was certainly the free throw shooting. Very solid. They were a much better free throw shooting team than we were, and we actually outshot them at the free throw line last night.
We'll take a break. Again, congratulations. The guys coming off a big win against the Citadel, and overall now the college has won 12 games. They're 12-5. They've won 6 of their last 7. We take a break. We'll come back. I'm going to talk to Coach about his active duty service. Always try to go kind of outside the lines a little bit, but a big part of your life, obviously, five years of active duty in the Navy. So we'll talk to him about that. And of course, look ahead. 2 big games coming up at Georgia Southern and at Davidson. So a lot to talk about as we continue on the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less podcast right after this on CFCSports.com.
GEICO says, let's make life simpler.
Look, I'm all for modern conveniences. But ask yourself, do you really need a blender with 23 buttons just...
GEICO says, let's make life simpler.
Look, I'm all for modern conveniences. But ask yourself, do you really need a blender with 23 buttons just to chop an onion? At GEICO, we think life should be simpler. So we make it super simple to save on car insurance. Just one click, and you could be on your...
And we welcome you back inside the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less Coaches Show with the head coach, Doug Wojcik. We're inside the Hall of Fame room here inside TD Arena. You can see pictures of all the former players who have come by the College of Charleston. Coach, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and go off the court. I always like to do that with you and kind of get your background a little bit. As we all know, you graduated from the Naval Academy, but you also spent 5 years active duty. And how did that shape you and your coaching career and basically your life in general?
Well, anyone who attends a service academy, the Air Force Academy, West Point, the Naval Academy, the obligation is 5 years. And the trade-off is everyone who goes to school at those 3 academies, national academies, goes to school free. And the payback is the 5-year obligation, and that's the minimum. Now, you could go on to become a doctor, and they'll pay for your med school and everything, and you would owe more time. So time is what you pay, and really proud of it. National anthem last night at Citadel, standing there with the color guard out there is just something that I really appreciate. I spent time on a ship. I was stationed in Mayport, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida. It was a frigate. It was an old Knox-class frigate, steam-driven ship, so it wasn't a gas turbine ship, so we had the pipes and all the steam, and so it was constant maintenance on the ship. And I spent a 6-month deployment around South America and through the Panama Canal, and most of my time in the Caribbean, which wasn't bad, but life on board a ship is certainly different. I tell people all the time, if you want to know what life on board a ship is like, as an officer and an officer of the watch on the deck of a ship, wake up tomorrow morning at 3 in the morning, tie a brick around your neck as simulating a pair of binoculars, and stand outside on your porch for 4 hours, because in the middle of the night, ships are all over the world, people are on watch, you're standing up there running the ship. It's really a unique thing, a unique experience. It's not something that I was accustomed to. I did not come from a military home at all, but something that I certainly admire, respect, and always have in the back of my mind as we live this great life, particularly in this great place. People are out there protecting us, and I think that's something that we all need to be aware of.
So you would literally be standing on the ship with the binoculars and having to...
Yeah, on the bridge of the ship, the officer of the watch, you've got somebody in the engineering department running the engineering department. You have a helmsman who's steering the ship. You're on a course. You've got to stay on course. You've got to keep your binoculars and look at the radar and see what they call contacts, what other ships are around you. You're not allowed to have a contact within a certain distance of a U.S. warship. If that happens, you have to call the captain and wake him up in the middle of the night and let him know what the situation is. You might be low on fresh water, and when I say fresh water, you're on a ship, you're in the middle of the ocean, you have to make your own water.
Right.
So all those things you monitor on your 4-hour watch. You have 4 hours on and then 8 hours off. And then when you're off, you get some sleep, and then you're in charge of what you're in charge of on the ship. Some people are in the engineering department, some people are in the deck department, some people are in the communications department, some people are in the weapons department. So you have a job, and then you have your officer of the watch duties as well.
It's the 15 minutes or less podcast, so unfortunately we don't have a whole lot of time to talk about it, but because I'd like to talk about it.
It wasn't an illustrious military career. It was more of an experience for me
Right.
that I'm really, really proud of.
But how did that shape you? I mean, has it just given you a greater appreciation for what you do, or has it
Well,
helped you at all?
I think in organization, I think chain of command, I think responsibility, I think probably not only being in charge of my players, which are my in a way, the way it was as a division officer, my enlisted men, but also shaping officers and meaning my assistant coaches and trying to help them get to where they need to be. And then a big part of that formation for me from that military background was certainly my time with Tom Izzo. Tom Izzo was always fascinated, interested. I mean, he took his team and played at the Citadel a few years ago. Right. Respectful towards the military and the organization. He's a guy that looked at the organization of, say, a football program, Bill Belichick and what he's doing, and that's how he ran his program. And so I was a good fit for Tom Izzo for those reasons. And then, my military background and then my time with Tom Izzo has really formed me for who I am and how I run my program now.
Coach, fascinating. I have such great respect, obviously, for everyone who's served in the military,
Yeah.
and great last night, great environment last night. Again, the College of Charleston defeats the Citadel, so they've won 6 of their last 7 now, and for the Citadel, unfortunately, they've lost 11 straight. Another tough loss for them last night. And speaking of other Southern Conference scores last night, how about Georgia Southern? You got 2 tough ones coming up on the road at Georgia Southern, then at Davidson. Davidson loses last night by 13 at Georgia Southern, gives the Eagles their first win. Davidson their first loss. The conference already in turmoil here early on.
Yeah, and I think it's like that in every conference. I mean, Conference USA was that way. It was the only thing there was Memphis was just so strong for so long, and John Calipari's teams, and that they could somewhat dominate. But other than that, man, it was always a slugfest for how can you win games, and that's why last Thursday was so tough because we dropped one at home.
Yeah.
Now you got to get one back somewhere on the road, but. Yeah, I mean, there's not one team with an undefeated record in the league now. We do have the best overall record, which I'm proud of, but that means nothing going to Georgia Southern. They're a team that has a lot of confidence now. They just beat the Davidson, the preseason favorites. So one game at a time, and that's the way we got to take it.
Just 1 minute left. Georgia Southern features Eric Ferguson. We've had a chance to watch him for the last couple years. Terrific player. We all know about Davidson. It'll be tough because you're going to have that quick turnaround between those 2 games.
Yeah, and every place is new for me and my staff. Not so much for my players, but also, I don't want them to have any preconceived ideas about a team, to take a Citadel lightly or to take a Georgia Southern lightly because of maybe their record or whatever. Every place is new, and then for us, I really can't turn my attention towards Davidson now, and so I only have a 1-day prep for Davidson. But we'll do our best and, see where we come out come Sunday.
Again, congratulations. College of Charleston wins it last night over the Citadel, and now the road trip continues with two road games coming up at Georgia Southern, at Davidson. Maybe that's a good thing. The guy's now 6-0 on the road. Thanks for your time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's head coach Doug Wojcik. I'm Jeff McCarriger. Thanks for tuning in on the GEICO 15 Minutes or Less podcast. Hopefully you made it in time again here on CFCSports.com.